In India, I had a Dasaji, which is a teacher who visits you at night and says, how was your day? What were your learnings? What do you want to talk about? And one night she came over and I said, I got a question for you. I've been waiting for you. And I said, what's your definition of enlightenment? And she looked at me with a smile. She smiled as if I just gave her like a Lamborghini. Like the question was a present for her. She smiled and she looks up at the ceiling. I swear, she sat there smiling, looking up, reflecting on her answer for 45 solid seconds. She looks back at me after all that and she said, having no internal conflict.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Optimist podcast. I'm your host, Matt Drinkon. And today, we have a special treat. Our guest today is none other than one of the world's renowned mental toughness coaches. And he's coached world famous leaders, billionaires, sports athletes that are world famous. He has written a number of books. He has a top podcast. My guest is none other than Mr. Chris Dorris today. And Chris is going to help us today with a number of things. So without any further ado, Chris, welcome to the show, sir. How are you today?
Thanks, Matt. This is the best damn day of my life.
Ooh, I love that. Tell me why. Tell me why you say that. Because some people say, I'm good. How are you? I cannot stand that answer. I love your answer. Help me understand. Why did you say it's the best day of your life today?
Because it's true. So I had on my bathroom mirror, I have written hashtag BDDOML, best damn day of my life. So one of the very first things that I do when I wake up every day is I do some inner world work. When you ask me, how are you? And anyone, whatever time of day it is, when someone asks, even if they don't mean it, because it's also just a way of saying hi, hey, how you doing? And they're not going, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
But I don't care that they don't care. I don't care that the question was asked and I'm answering it because the question is a reminder to me to do the work that I do in the morning first thing, which is this. To not wait. I use a lot of mental toughness mantras, and one of them is create the state, don't wait. I don't have time to wait for stuff to go great, to feel great. I got time for that. So what I do in the morning is I do whatever work I need to do. And some days I tell you what, brother, it ain't so easy. I got to do the work to get my mind to elevate, to have it be true. It's not just like fluffy words. I'm not into that crap. Mm-hmm. I'm doing the damn work. And if maybe I had a bad experience the night before, maybe I just have weird dreams, or maybe I'm hungover or sick. There's a million reasons where I'd be like, it's not the best day. And I say, no, bro, no, you ain't skipping this. And I haven't skipped a day in about 5 years. And I'm not gonna, and do the work to elevate my state. And I got to tell you, man, I can't believe it took me till I was about 50 to start doing this because it just is smart. Because I elevate my state and I bring that state out into the world. And so we didn't prepare this, right? Because before you press record and we were chatting it up, you didn't say, how are you? Mm-hmm. Had you, I would have said, this is the best damn day of my life. You didn't say, how are you, till we got on record, right? So in that moment, when you said, how are you? I did it. That's the second time in my day. Right? I did it when I first woke up, and now you said, how are you? And so I'm doing the work to have it be true. I'm creating the state of best damn day of my life. So I want to encourage you and anyone who's listening to or watching this to experiment with your own version of that. Because this is the deal, man. And this is pretty amazing, right? Like I elevate my state, and then I go out into my day, and I'm bringing that vibe. And you know what happens? Goodness. Mm. Because our vibes are contagious, and that's science. Mm. Our vibes are contagious, right? One of my great mentors taught me once that we're always either purifying or polluting the environment with our vibe. So what do you want? And vibes are contagious. So it's like, what do you want to be your contagion? Like, what do you want people catching from you? Mm. And it's just better things happen, and people cooperate and collaborate more. My attitude's better, so then their attitude's better. So I want to encourage everybody to experiment with your own version of that. Vibing up in the morning. Doesn't need to be best damn day of your life. It can be, but just vibe up.
I love it. And we're only 4 minutes in, and you've already delivered a masterclass. In the Front Row Dads community, I would call this bonus time because I've already gotten something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. to add to what I would call my own mental practice. My friend Hal has this miracle morning practice, and I do that each morning. And now this is something I think even trumps the affirmations I've written for myself. This is really powerful. So, dear listener out there, this is not fluff. This is not just say things that sound nice. This is a complete way of living and a being and a believing. And to start your way, imagine starting your day like that. Amazing.
Matt, if I was only allowed for some strange reason to communicate one lesson in my vocation, it would be this: that we have the ability, all of us have the ability, and we've always had it, to profoundly alter our states in a moment's time.
Okay.
My work is in large part about helping people free themselves from the conditioning of the past, like the stuff we've learned along the way that has us unnecessarily settle, struggle, and suffer. And one of the things is that we learn to be all of us learn to be victims of circumstance, meaning letting circumstance govern how we're feeling, like the outer world governing the inner world. Mm-hmm. And we got to flip that around. If we're going to be committed, if we're truly committed to living life powerfully, like a badass and creating excellence, we got to get rid of all that learned victim crap and reclaim ownership of our states and practice elevating state on purpose instantly. You want to do an exercise?
I'll have to. Bring it. Yes.
All right. So everybody do this. This is cool. This is a game changer for a lot of people. Do whatever you got to do inside yourself to create the emotional state of anxiety. And we're just going to do it for a couple moments, so don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. So just do whatever you got to do inside yourself to legitimately create the emotional experience of anxiety, and let me know when you're done. Go.
I'm there.
Okay, so you succeeded at the task.
Yes.
Okay, can you tell me how did you do it, Matt?
For me, I thought about the things in the world that I fear the most, that I don't want to have happen, that are out of my control, that terrify me.
Notice that the answer began with "I thought about." All right, let's do another one. So do whatever you got to do inside yourself to create the emotional experience of absolute serenity, genuine peace. Let me know when you're done. Go.
Okay.
All right. So you're 2 for 2. You were able to do that one as well?
I'm close on the serenity. It normally takes me a few breaths to get there. I've not mastered it to instantaneous yet.
I like the word "yet" on that. Okay, let's do another one. Do whatever you got to do inside yourself to create the state of incompetency, like maybe even imposter syndrome. And let me know when you're done. Go.
Can you reframe that? Because I'm not exactly certain how to do that, to be frank.
Like that you suck. And create the state that you're no good at what you do. That you're inadequate or inept.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So you were able to do that one as well.
With a little practice, yes.
Well, how'd you do that?
Well, for me, I had to consciously change my body language to feel like I'm a loser and I suck. And that's not something that's natural for me anymore.
Right on. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Good. Now, let's do one more. Do whatever you got to do inside yourself to create the state, the emotional state, and take as long as you need to, the state of world-class expertise.
Okay.
Roger that, man. That was fun to watch. So you succeeded at that one?
Yes, sir.
How'd you do it?
Well, I would go back to my Tony Robbins training, my NLP, and I grab my emotional artifact and I breathe in and out to my artifact, which is my domino, which has 47 on it. I'm 47 right now.
Roger that. Nice.
This is one. It's one. Yeah.
So now I'm going to Don't
I
let me
feel
put any
great
words
right
in your
now,
mouth.
by the way. Thank you for being in this spot. I feel fantastic. You helped me get there. Thank you. This is good.
Well, you did it. And this is the point. This is the whole point of the exercise, is that you just altered your state 4 times. And you did it in a matter of moments. And the states that I picked, right, for this exercise are at polar opposite ends of the emotional spectrum, which is why I call this the emotional spectrum exercise. So we started with anxiety, and most people can do that in like 1 second. You know why? And you said it. You said my answer. I'm going to say the answer to why are people, like so many people, so good at creating anxiety. You said the answer twice in this dialogue. The answer is practice.
Okay.
Whatever you practice, you get good at. And we have been conditioned to practice thinking about what has gone wrong, what is going wrong, and what could go wrong a lot. And as a result, we are practicing creating anxiety, and we're literally mastering that. So when I do this exercise, I always start with anxiety because it's funny sometimes, if I'm doing it in a group, people laugh because they're like, oh, I was already there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny, but joking aside, and this isn't funny, is that's us creating unnecessary suffering. And ain't nothing funny about that. And we do it all day. Great news about that is, notice the language I use. We create unnecessary. We are the creators of our state. Create the state. Don't wait. Don't wait for stuff to change in the world to feel great. Don't wait for things to go great, right? And don't let, when things don't go your way, control your inner state by having you feel unpleasant if you don't want to. Now, I love sadness. I love sadness. It's so, thank God for the sweet experience of sadness and the contrast that it brings, because joy wouldn't exist without it. Right. But I don't want to only have sadness. Now, I don't even want to have a shitload of it. I want to have some of it.
Okay.
I want to have some of it. And I don't want to ruin it by wishing I wasn't having it. Now that has gone from sadness to suffering.
By wishing you don't have something that you have. That's
wishing I wasn't feeling this way.
Oh man,
Like,
I wish I didn't feel this
grief.
way. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like, the death of a loved one, and you're grieving, and it's a beautiful experience of that grief. It's that we get to do it. Can you imagine if we couldn't? It would be life would be weird. So don't ruin the beautiful experience of grief and sadness by wishing you were out of it. Experience it fully. I studied in India one time, and it was easily the coolest thing I've ever done in terms of my own personal development. And one of the things that I took away from that experience was everything, when experienced fully, becomes joy. That confused the hell out of me at first. I thought, what does that even mean? What are you talking about? So they did this experiment, an exercise with us. And it's called locking yourself in the room with the tiger, which is really fascinating because, they actually have tigers in India.
I just imagine that, and I didn't feel joy.
No,
but yes. Okay.
Well, okay. So yeah, right. But what you do is that's the tiger is the metaphor for the pain, emotional pain. That is fundamental to life, right? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So the exercise is to think your way, like you did. We did anxiety first, right?
Yes,
so, but they might say, let's go into the most horrible pain that you've ever felt emotionally, and they're with you. They're sitting right there with you. You're laying on the ground, and they're like, hold your hand if you need. They're like, we got you. Then these are enlightened souls that have been doing amazing work. I mean, literally enlightened souls that have been doing inner world work for their entire lives. They emanate safety, so it's all good.
Yeah.
And they say, just think your way into the dark, and I got you. Don't worry, I ain't leaving, and because you're safe. Just you got nothing needs to be avoided. So go ahead, and then they coach you through it, and they have, and you be crying.
Yeah.
You start getting and they'll say, good, stay there. Don't think your way out of it, and that's the key. That's the key, is to not try to escape. So what they call it, locking yourself in a room with a tiger, is you bring a tiger into the room, you lock yourself in, you jump in its damn mouth. And then when you just feel the pain, you feel it and you feel it. If it's a pool, you drown yourself in it kind of way. And then what you realize is it dissipates.
Yes.
And then you realize, wow, this really wasn't so horrible. I don't want to feel that way all the time, but that doesn't need to be avoided. So we go to all this part of the conditioning of our past is that we're conditioned to believe that emotional pain needs to be avoided, when in fact it doesn't at all. Because in fact, jump into that fire, dive head forward into it, experience it, and then you'll realize this never needed to be avoided. I don't need to use humor. I don't need to use substances. I don't need to use sex. I don't need to use gambling. I don't need to use any of these things. I don't need to use sarcasm. I don't need to use rationale.
Yeah.
I don't need to justify. I don't need to do any of all that work. I just don't need to do it. And that's a mental mastery right there.
Well, so two thoughts come to mind. One is that I've done a lot of this emotional work with somatic breath work with coaches. And so I feel self-aware enough to understand what you're saying and to practice this and to know what it's like to have that release of what had gripped me for years. The 28-year-old me, who was just focused on running head down into business and succeeding, when my dad died, I locked that inside and coped with it in a bottle for a while. And it was a deep depression, couldn't talk about it, didn't want to let anybody in. And I feel that there are far more people in that place. And I'm not out of that place because I'm lucky. I'm there because I had good leadership that brought me to a place where I felt safe enough to be able to try opening up and doing some of the things we're doing now. But for those people that are hearing what you're sharing right now, Chris, and they're like, man, I just can't get to a place where I allow myself to feel. I can't see how that's even possible. How do we help them get on the path when it just sounds so insurmountable? How do we help them get there?
Yeah, it's all predicated. So emotional mastery is predicated upon awareness. And I like that. There are so many similarities between working out physically and working out mentally, but the big distinction, the massive difference between the two, is that the inner world work, emotional mastery, is entirely predicated upon awareness. You can't see anything. So I like to say that. Well, I mean, when I say you can't see anything, I mean you can't see anything physically. You can see results, though.
Yeah.
I like to say that the most mentally tough, happiest, most successful people, and those three things are totally inextricably connected, they choose to live in a perpetual state of self-inquiry. And what that means is this, and I mean perpetual, no seconds off. It's one of my other favorite mantras, no seconds off. And if that sounds overwhelming, it won't in a minute. They live in a perpetual state of self-inquiry, meaning they're always asking themselves questions like, how am I feeling right now? Am I choosing it? Is it useful? Is it serving me? Do I like it? Does it need a bump? Could it use a little love, an upgrade? What kind of state am I thinking my way into right now? Is it useful? Is it pleasant? Is it my choice? Or am I letting the outer world govern me right now? These are the questions that the most mentally tough, happiest, and successful people live in, constantly asking themselves questions. So all of it is predicated upon your ability to even notice your damn moods. And then to notice them, and then to take ownership of them by saying, I ain't feeling frustrated because of traffic. I'm not feeling defensive because somebody just insulted me. Right? I'm not pissed off because my refrigerator just broke and all my steaks are ruined. I'm feeling this way because of how I'm thinking about all this stuff right now. Marcus Aurelius said it very well. Marcus Aurelius, the greatest Roman emperor ever, who was also totally a mental coach. He said, if you're troubled by a thing, it ain't the thing. He probably didn't say ain't. It ain't the thing, but it's your own estimate of it, which you have the right to revoke at any moment.
Yeah.
Which is profound. So here's a good practice. This is a really good practice to make. I love making hard things simple. You know, as an elite athlete, being in the zone, how it feels, and it feels beautiful, right? And you know what else feels? It feels simple. It feels simple. There was a long period of my career where I worked exclusively with elite athletes, and that was cool. And I really was so fascinated. I was always interviewing people on the zone and their peak performances. What was that? Tell me, think about describe it to me. And one of the descriptors that people always used was effortless. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it fascinating, right?
Very fascinating,
like the best rounds of golf of your life. You're like, that. Why was that so easy? Can it please be like that always? And it's the same thing with musicians and anybody. When we're having a peak performance, there's like flow. That's why it's called also the flow state. And it feels effortlessness. So I like to work my ass off at making things effortless. So here's a simple exercise for people, which is start stopping complaining. Start reducing the frequency with which you practice having a problem with reality, which is what a complaint is. You struggling against reality, which, by the way, is a battle you'll lose 100% of the time. So pay it, and it's learned, right? And we practice it, we get great at it, and it's stupid. Complaining makes us dumb because it deactivates creative genius. So it's like a dumb, popular as hell practice. It is weakening us. And scientists say that people complain on average. You want to guess how often? Take a guess.
Well, first of all, whatever the real answer is, I'd say too much. One too many times, but maybe 10 times a day. We're talking golf. I'm teeing you up, baby.
Oh my God! Yeah, you think you only complain?
Okay, all right. Well, real answer. My 6-year-old. There were probably at least 10 complaints yesterday, maybe 20. In my adult group of people that are in a close circle, I'd say that it's probably about the same, and it might even be more than that times a huge number on the inner side of their brain that they don't always verbalize. But I would say that a lot of people live in a constant state of complaint, which is troubling.
There you go. That's it. So I don't know how it is troubling.
Yeah.
It's troubling for the complainer. It's creating trouble. That's exactly what it is. It's troubling. I am creating trouble in my life. I am creating the trouble by interpreting reality in a low-grade way, which is what a complaint is. So the scientists that research this, and don't ask me how they research this, but they say we complain once every 11 seconds.
Wow.
And you nailed it. I know, man. So pay attention. Everybody listen to this. And you don't even have to agree with that. It doesn't matter. Just experiment with this. Is like, you said it. 99.9% of our complaints never make it into the spoken word and world. They occur silently inside of us, causing dis-ease, which causes disease. So you just reminded me of something. I got into this field of mental toughness training because I was a basketball player, and I played in college, and I was a high jumper, and then I shattered my leg playing in a pickup game, a casual pickup game down at the Jersey Shore, a town called Sea Isle City, where I was living after college.
Okay.
And incredible runs, like unbelievable runs in this tiny little island community in the wintertime. It's just so bizarre, but great runs. One night I came down from rebound, total compound fracture of my left tibia and fibula, bone protrusion. It was wrong, man. The sound of it, everybody's faces looking at me going, ooh, and they couldn't look at me, and I couldn't look at my leg, and it's so messed up. So, I almost died from it too, because I got a fatty embolism from it. And the embolism went to my lungs, gave me pneumonia.
Yeah.
They were going to give me a trach, and I had 107-degree temperature for a week on an ice blanket in Princeton Medical Center and all this crap. I recovered fully, but I was like, that's enough hoops. And I shifted all of my athletic investment and passion into golf.
Okay.
And I started getting pretty good. And when I started, because I was playing and practicing every day, and I got lessons, and I was a social worker, so I had to save. So I had made no money.
Yeah.
But I made, what I made? Friends. And the guy that gave me lessons just loved my work so much, he never charged me. And he said, you can use the range too to practice. You just got to go pick the balls in the picker. I'm like, that's okay. Yes to that. It is scary when people peg you in the picker. So anyway, I
love to peg people in the picker, by the way. I love my 4-iron line drive cut right to that 90-yard picker.
As somebody that can empathize with how traumatic it is to get pegged in the picker, I still do it too.
Yes. We were at Topgolf last week. I was pegging that guy out there in the picker.
Yeah. It's a moving target. It's like skill development.
Yes.
So anyway, So I started getting good. And also, you know what else I started doing? Getting weird, getting pissed off. I was a club chucker.
Oh.
I was a nut job, dude. I was a nut job on the golf course.
Oh. Okay.
So I became really well. That's what I was like. So one day I crushed a drive off. It was a risk reward, hole.
Okay.
And if you're going to cut the corner, you got to work it right to left, or else you're going into a big pond. And I just nutted it, and I had gap wedge in on a hole where I normally have 5. I've even had 3 iron in.
Jeez.
So I'm like, yes. And I chili dip it. The ground is wet. And mud's on my face. And I'm so pissed off that I slammed, the divot went farther than the ball, and I slammed my club into the ground. It buries because it's all wet and it snaps.
Oh, okay.
So and that was my bread and butter club.
Oh,
my 50 degree Titleist gap wedge. I love that club.
Great wedge.
Right. So I'm standing there with a broken club with this broken shaft in my hand and going, man, you act like a jackass. Like, what is this? So when that club snapped, something in me snapped, and it was like an awareness, like, what the hell is this? Because you're not like this. You're not like that. Like, I think I got a little bit of a temper, but not like this.
Yeah.
So I started getting like, this is fascinating. Like, what is going on here? And I came up with a hypothesis that I decided to experiment with. And here is my apparatus. This is actually from the Jersey Shore. Look at that, South Jersey. This is the clipboard that I used, right, to do this experiment. I had a T-chart. One was for kids, plus minus. One was for adults, plus minus.
Okay.
Right? The real papers, they're long gone. But this is what it looked like. So I stood on 18. I waited for the Father-Son Day tournament because I needed to have adults and kids around to test my hypothesis, which I'll share in a second.
Okay.
I stood on 18 green, and I asked everybody as they came off after the round was finished, a nice open-ended question. I said, hey, how'd it go? That's all I said. How'd it go? I didn't say, how'd you shoot? I didn't say that. I just said, how'd it go? Like totally open-ended, right?
Yes.
And then I would put a check mark, and if they said something cool, I'd put a check mark in there. And if they said something unpleasant, I'd put a check mark under the minus column. You know exactly where this is going. I know you know it. Right? So let's start with the adults.
Okay.
You know what the adults said. I'm going to keep it clean, by the way. I'm going to clean it up. Okay? Because it would just change the dynamic of this interview.
Get ready, podcast team. I sense some bleeps are coming.
Yeah, there's going to be lots. But I'm going to clean it up for you. You don't need the bleeps. But imagine, the real version. And I'm like these adults were like, well, I'd suck.
Yeah.
And I was like, to suck again. And they're like, it would have been good if I could, putt saved my life. And then a few F-bombs. And I'm like, the kids, right, he can hear you. But, the only positive responses from adults were if they had an unusually good scoring round, or if they were really old. The old dudes were like, oh, it's so good to be out of here. Now,
okay.
But most others were like, I wish I played good on the front, managed to screw it up on the back as usual, better than the day at work. It's like, well, maybe you need a job. So anyway, but the kids, here's the learning. The kids blew me away. Now, they proved my hypothesis correct, but way correcter.
Okay.
Than I predicted. So, and I'll tell you the hypothesis in a second. These are some of the kids' answers. One kid said, oh, and he doesn't know me from Adam. Total stranger going, hey, buddy, how'd it go? And he goes, I made a putt on number 2. It was like 100 feet long and broke 4 times. Now, there's probably a little bit of embellishment in that story from the kid, but who cares? Yeah. He's remembering. This is what's going on. The kids, selective attention, right? And this is natural for us. He automatically recalls a success that happened 4.5 hours ago on hole number 2.
Yes.
The first thing that arises in his field of consciousness when a total stranger says, hey, buddy, how'd it go? Is a success story. An enthusiastic, I made that putt. Now, another kid said, I saw the snapping turtle on the pond on 12, which was the exact hole that I was telling you about where I snapped my club. And he said, I finally saw the snapping turtle in the pond on 12. The thing, it's like the size of my dog. I always thought you guys were lying. And he was excited because he's appreciating something that we call a hazard.
Yes.
You know, he was actually appreciating one of the most amazing things that makes golf so amazing, which is nature.
Yes.
But everybody calls that pond like a succubus. I just say it's like,
Yes.
so he's appreciating it.
Awesome.
But here's the best answer from all the kids. This is my favorite one anyway. Kid said, I hit the ball so far off a 16 tee, it went in the bay.
Yes.
He hit the ball through the dog leg. Is a par 5 dog leg right. Great hole, 90-degree dog leg. And he hit the ball on the screws, man.
Okay.
He never connected. He never hit a ball that far. And he can imagine this is what it's like, right? Dad hits first for the back tees. He walks up in the fairway so he can watch his son's ball. And the kid just nuts it on the screws. And he's going, go. And the dad's going, oh, shit. Get that. So right, the dad's like, damn. And the kid's like, Dad. And I'm going to put my South Jersey accent on. Yo, Dad, did that go in the water? and he goes, yeah. And the kid's like, you swear? See, this is fascinating, isn't it? Right?
Yes.
And the dad's going, oh, he finally catches one on the screws and he gets screwed. And that's what golfers learn to act like. And that's what I learned to act like.
Yeah.
Right? But the kid hasn't been taught to act like that yet. This is one event, bro. One thing happened. Kid hits a golf ball really well and really far. Right? And the kid's celebrating that because he knows that is proof positive that he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Who needs to move back a tee now, huh? Right. Whereas the dad's like, so the kid's looking at it as like evidence of mastery.
Yes.
Which is the accurate way to look at it. And the dad's looking at it, oh, you got a penalty struck. This sucks. You got screwed like a baby victim. And now that kid's going to learn though. So the hypothesis, of course, is that we as early humans, before we're educated to see the world problematically, experience life enthusiastically. And that's smart. It's why we learn faster when we're kids, but it's not because we're young. It's because we have enthusiasm. Mm. The word enthusiasm itself is amazing. It comes from the Greek word entheos, which translates into the creator within. So when we choose to think our way into enthusiasm, we're activating all forms of creative genius and intelligence. It's just a smart move. Right. So the shift here and the point of the whole experiment was because when I snapped my club, I'm like, why am I acting like that? And I thought to myself, I thought it through for a good long while. And my answer was, I learned to act like that. I'm unlearning that crap because that did not serve me. And I know why I learned it too. It doesn't matter. I learned it from my uncle, who was a great golfer and had a horrible temper. And I watched him. I was trying to mimic him because I'm like, oh, I guess that's how good golfers do it, is you slam your clubs and you curse yourself. And you celebrate a little bit when you nut it, but most of the shots don't go where you want them to in that sport. So it's like there's a whole lot of complaining. So I learned it. So I'm like, I'm unlearning this. And that's the whole point of this.
Yes.
Is what have we learned along the way that's not serving us? Like when you don't get what you want, that's bad. You learn that. We learn that. That's bullshit.
Yes.
That's no. Thank God for when I don't get what I want. You mentioned Tony Robbins, something I learned from him. This is great. There's no such thing as failure. There are only results. That's a Tony Robbins nugget. So there's no such thing. Tony Robbins actually studied the same place as I did in India, the Oneness University.
Wow.
He brought Sage, his wife, there, and they cured her of her motion sickness, which made him cry, joy. So there's no failure in my world. There's just a boatload of attempts, and there's outcomes. There are outcomes, and there's two categories of outcomes. Got what I wanted, didn't. And both are equally valuable. This is a very masterful way of viewing life. Deconstructing failure and replacing it with results. And there's two categories. Got what I wanted, didn't, which are equally valuable. When I get what I wanted, I get like the benefits, obviously. I get to celebrate, use whatever I got. It's good. It's nice. And when I don't get what I want, that's when I get to grow, which is what we're designed for. We're designed for growth. If we're only ever getting what we wanted, life would be pathetically boring.
Wow.
So all the way back to the invitation to let's start eliminating complaints. Let's start decreasing. Don't think about eliminating might sound overwhelming, but just start like complain less today than you did yesterday.
Okay.
And replace your complaints with an expression of authentic gratitude for the same thing that you were just complaining about. Do the work. So let's take the example of traffic, because it's just it's a light. By the way, don't start with the most emotionally charged things. Like if you have a loved one who's really, really sick, don't start with that example. Don't start with that circumstance. Start with the little things you complain all day long about. Oh shit, my glass is empty. I gotta go get more water. Or I pulled a button popped off my shirt. Just all the pen ran out of ink. All the little things.
Okay.
And whatever you're complaining, we'll say traffic. We'll use traffic as an example, right? Something that we've all learned to complain about, all of us. Like, is it really a problem? So you're sitting in traffic. God bless it, Jesus! I'm probably going to be late. This sucks. Notice that this sucks. How often you go, this sucks. Notice how often you think and say, this sucks. And by the way, here's a practice within the practice: is when you say this sucks, go follow it up with, unless it doesn't. Just get into that habit. You're reprogramming your brain that way. So the traffic, say, oh, I was listening to that interview with Matt, that great podcast, the Eternal Optimist podcast. Such a badass name for a podcast, by the way. And say, I had that mental coach on, and he asked me to stop or reduce my complaints. Okay, so let's do that, because I'm sitting here bitter in traffic. Okay, so now you've caught it.
Okay.
You have paid. You've acknowledged. Wow, I'm really pissed off right now. I'm really irritated. That's freedom, baby. That's freedom. Because otherwise, you're just in it, and it's running you. So now you say, "Oh wow, look at me." In this moment, I'm really frustrated, and you could own it by saying, "Look at me creating frustration right now." That's powerful. Look, I'm creating some frustration. The traffic ain't making me frustrated. I'm doing that with my thoughts on it.
Love it.
And then you upgrade it, right? And you upgrade it by turning it into expression of gratitude. I'm not happy. I'm not using public transport. I don't have to use public transport. I have my own car. It's just like, wow, what a love. When's the last time I really thought about how amazing it is to own a car?
Yes, sir. I'm totally with you here.
Wow.
Everything you're saying, you're putting it down. I'm picking it up, and I love what you're sharing. And I'm curious, with your journey, and you've proven it today. I was going to ask you, prove it, and you have for half an hour, and this has been incredibly amazing, Chris. If you take us back in time to when you began your journey with curiosity or with self-awareness, how does one get to become someone that has mental toughness or sincere gratitude and appreciation or high awareness, that where you can transmutate things into gratitude? How did you get to that place? Practice. When did it start for you, where you became aware of this? That's a great question.
I am so blessed for having had incredible mentoring like my entire life. My father died when I was 9, and then I had a great mentor, father figure, role model who taught me a lot of things, including spirituality, confidence. He gave my first book he gave on spirituality is actually called The Mustard Seed. He gave it to me when I was 13. It's by Osho, who didn't even go by the name of Osho then. His name was Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. It was heavy. And he, so I had great mentoring, and he taught me meditation, and he taught me the practice of self-inquiry. By the way, that reminds me, I didn't finish something I started earlier where I said, remember when I said no seconds off, and if that sounds exhausting, it won't in a second? I forgot to finish that. So I'll finish that now. Remember I said that like people like to live in it. The most mentally tough, happiest, successful people live in a state of perpetual self-inquiry, no seconds off.
Yes.
The reason that that's not exhausting is because what is exhausting is all the unnecessary struggle and suffering we create for ourselves with low-grade thinking. That's exhausting.
Yes.
So if I spend all my time elevating my state, all of it, no seconds off from that, I'm creating inspiration. I'm creating lightness of being. That is not exhausting. That's invigorating. So he taught me all this stuff from an early age. So it's like practice. When you work out, if you give me an example of one exercise that you do.
Last night I hopped on the treadmill for 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. So what you didn't do is you didn't get on the treadmill for 30 seconds.
Correct.
Why not?
Well,
how come you didn't just do 30 seconds? Why didn't you just
because
stop?
Practicing what I want to do to train for the marathon takes more than 30 seconds. So I need to do it consistently on a regular basis. And that was just
Well, there you go.
my
So the
thought.
same thing with well, you just said it, right? That. So if the question is, how do people become emotional masters and thought warriors? Get in the reps, babe.
In the reps, babe.
Get in the reps. And then now, and this is what's beautiful about the mental training is you don't need a treadmill, you don't need a gym, you don't need apparatus. All you need is air. You just need to be alive, because every second is an opportunity to train. Hey, look, I hope those scientists are right. Okay, because that gives me it gives me like 5 times a minute I get in reps.
Yes.
So with enthusiasm, let me tell you a story about a coach of mine, former coach, one of my former coaches. He does this thing where he'll pick a state, a neighboring state. He lives here in Arizona, and he'll pick a city, and in the summertime he loads up his car. He drives a little Porsche. He's a speed freak, which is cool. And he loads up his Porsche with all these books of, like, somebody wrote a book about him, and like my book, and other clients' books and stuff, and he gives them away to strangers that he's about to meet, right? Because he just goes. He picked, like, this summer he picked Santa Monica, so he drives out to Santa Monica, he gets a place to stay, and then he has no agenda, none, no plans. He just meets people and co-creates magic for a week, and then goes home. And he documents it on social media. It's total badass. It's so great to watch. It's like healthy ass reality TV.
Awesome.
So anyway, at the end of the week, he makes his final post, and he goes, the summer tour is over, complete, total success, many miracles co-created. Now I get to go home to see my amazing girlfriend, who happens to be my wife, Amy. I can't wait to get home, give you a hug and a kiss. Signing out, Steve. And I thought, that's just beautiful.
Awesome.
A few hours later, there's a new post, another post. Apparently, this summer's tour is not yet complete. There's more magic to be created. I have a flat tire in the middle of the desert in 120-degree heat with no spare. All right. Now, if you're responding, anybody is hearing that and you're going, oh God, that sucks. Get in a rep.
That's right.
Say like a dozen. Right. And he says, I get to make someone's day. I get to call Porsche roadside assistance, and whoever answers, I get to make their day. I wouldn't have even thought to do that if it wasn't for this flat.
I love it.
So he calls, and a woman answers, and he makes her day. And she's like, sir, are you on drugs? This is not a typical phone. He goes, I'm on dopamine, sister. Yes, I am. It's serotonin. I am. And, and she was just so joy-filled, and he made her day. And then he asked her, like, what are we going to do? And she says, well, I already dispatched Paul. He's coming out with the flatbed to pick up you and your car and take you home. And I said, that's amazing. He says, Paul, oh my God, he's about to have the ride of his life, and he doesn't even know it yet. So he makes Paul's day. He gets 2 hours of free coaching from the ultimate coach, which is like, people pay 10 grand for that. So I'm telling this story like I'm telling you now, because it's so perfectly relevant to the work that I do and share with people.
Absolutely.
Right. The mental toughness trace. So, but I'm telling the story, and I thought to myself, am I making stuff up? Am I like embellishing for like my own convenience here? I better fact check. I know the source, so I just call him up. And I called Steve and said, hey, man, I'm telling your story. I love the story of the flat tire, but I want to make sure I'm telling it accurately. I want to make sure that I'm not making up details for convenience. And so I have 2 clarification questions for you. He said, all right, what do you got? I said, number 1, be honest. Seriously. Like honest to God, how long did it take for you to get to enthusiasm after discovering that you got a flat tire 120 miles out from Phoenix in 120-degree heat with no spare? And he said, 0 seconds. I said, okay, roger that. Second and final clarification question for you, man. How were you able to do that? And his answer was years and years of practice. And that's what we're talking about here, Matt. I mean, that's what we've been talking all day, is practicing, getting in the reps of upgrading my interpretations of reality. So he has arrived at a point because of years and years of daily practice with no seconds off, of catching himself when he's going dark against reality and upgrading it.
Man.
Of feeling crappy when you don't need to or can't even afford to. And there's nothing wrong with feeling crappy because we do way to hell too much. And Buddha made the argument we don't need to do it at all. And I happen to be in agreement with him.
Wow.
So years and years of practice, right, of upgrading your interpretations. So that's the answer. And by the way, like I ain't there. I'm not there. But you know where I am? I mentioned in our conversation today, I referenced the refrigerator breaking and steaks being ruined. Well, that's actually a real story. It happened in my world. So I had just bought all these steaks. I was going to have a party, a great like red wine steak party.
Ooh.
And my refrigerator broke and all the steaks were ruined.
Oh.
And when I discovered that, I went into a tirade. It was like me back on a golf course breaking the club. I was dropping F-bombs like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And well, because the refrigerator had just been repaired 4 days ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, freaking, my home warranty company is so cheap. You bastards, I've been paying you for 19 years. Give me a new fridge. And I'm cursing out the guy who fixed it, who happened to be a really cool dude. I really enjoyed him. I stayed with him the whole time we were talking. I gave him a copy of a book. We had a great time. And I'm cursing him out now. You can't fix shit. That you did. And then I go, oh, by the way, you're a mental coach. You might want to like use your tools here, Scooter.
Oh, shoot.
So I go straight to, so that took me 30 seconds. And that's a damn win, brother. That's a win.
Nice.
It took me 30 seconds. And I said, use your mantras. So I said, I used what I call the great neutralizer mantra. And I thought to myself, ain't bad, just is. That's the neutralizer mantra. Right? Ain't bad, just is. It actually comes from Shakespeare. I stole that from him and made it like Jersey style. Like in Hamlet, he says, one of the lines that Hamlet says when Hamlet's in jail, thinking about his circumstance, goes, nothing good or bad happens, but thinking makes it so. So I turn that into ain't bad, just is. So I used it right there, and I elevated my state in a moment from livid to neutral. And that's when I thought to myself, man, this stuff is good. Like, this stuff works. This is why I do this for a job. And then I said, well, let's not stop at neutral. Let's go make it better. And I said, well, you know what then? All right, here's another mantra. This is the best damn thing could have happened. Now, if somebody was there and said to me, bullshit, stop with that. Happy, this is not, how the hell, how's that the best thing?
Yeah.
And I would have said, and my answer would have been, I don't know yet. Simmer down, give me a minute. Okay, but I'll tell you what I do know, bud, is this with a hundo. This is a lock. By virtue of the way I'm choosing to respond to this, upgrading my reaction, I'm going to create something great out of it. Count it. I don't know what it is yet, but here it is. You know what it is? That's been 2 years. Here's the story. I'm using it on your podcast. I use this story all the time. It's an example. It's a story of what, like back in the day, I would have been bent over that for days.
Yes.
I would have been pissed off for 30 seconds. That's all I spent 30 measly seconds in hell, and then I got myself out. So that's what we get to look. I'm so happy about that. Like, that's mega progress. That's unbelievable. My buddy Steve, the coach, I ain't at 0 seconds yet, but I'm getting there.
Man, this has been such a master class. Thank you, Chris. This is amazing. Where do we find you? Like, what's your website? What's your social handles if you do those? Help us connect with you, because this has been awesome.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, and it's just my name, Chris Dorris. And my website's cool. It's pretty robust. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's cool swag on there. There's mental toughness swag and stuff. You can get like, I should have brought one up, mugs and hoodies and T-shirts with all the mantras, the phrases like create the state, don't wait, ain't bad, just is, all these things. Vibe up. And my website is ChristopherDorris.com. And my last name is spelled Dorris. So you know what I would encourage people to go? Go to the website. And on the homepage, on the right-hand side, there's a sign up for what's called the Daily Dose.
Okay.
And this is one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. It took me years to create. But every morning at about 6 a.m., wherever you are in the world, you will get a mental toughness nugget that you can consume in 30 seconds or less. It's called the Daily Dose, Mental Toughness Tips in 30 seconds or less. So I spent years taking all these like stuff like that we talked about today, and then reducing it down to little consumable nuggets that you can read in like 30 seconds, absorb, and then go practice and help your, get your head right first thing in the day. It's called the Daily Dose Sewing, and it's free. I never solicit anything on there. It's just a chunk of like goodness, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So sign up for that. I encourage you to sign up for that.
I just did. It's really simple, team. And look at this podcast or this, you got a podcast on here. You got multiple books. What is your most recent book or the book that we should check out that you have? Because I want to capture some of this. So yeah, can you show us? Okay. What do you got there?
Yep. This is it. It's called The Book of Mental Toughness Mantras. This is the greatest thing that I've ever created. This is like a training, it's not like, it is a training tool. So I use it with everyone that I coach. Now, here's what it is. You were asking, how do we do this? How do we do this? And, I use the example of the traffic, right? So the practice is to replace your low-grade interpretations of reality with high-grade ones. This makes that easy.
Nice.
So here are 52, time-tested replacement thoughts to help you elevate your state when you're going south in your brain.
I've got it. I just ordered it. It's on the way.
Thank you, author.
You're welcome, author. And I see one of our friend co-op, Mr. Bob Berg, actually put a nice little from the Go Giver, put a nice little recommendation on the website too. That's pretty cool.
He's a sweetheart of a dude, and that was a great episode of yours with him.
Awesome, man. This is good. This has been fantastic, Chris. This has been absolutely amazing. I don't do this often, but on my notes for all 200 episodes, I've got 9 of them right now that I put a bookmark next to go back to, and this is one of them for sure. This has been, for me personally, one of the most, if not the most, impactful podcast recording that I've ever had. This has been absolutely amazing. Woo! Yeah, you've set a bar. You've set a bar. You've raised a bar. This is absolutely amazing. So, is there anything else you want to talk about? Because you have a podcast on here. Tell us about your podcast.
It's called Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. You know what I'll tell you?
Yeah.
Is I would like to share my definition of mental toughness with you. It might have been maybe structurally might be better to start with that, but whatever, we can finish with it too.
Yes. Okay.
This is my definition. So if you Google mental toughness, you will not see this. Mental toughness is a superpower. Actually, it's perfect. This is the best damn thing could have happened. It's perfect that this is coming at the end. This is seriously perfect.
That's right.
Because we teed this up.
Sure.
So mental toughness is a superpower that comes with practice, right? The diligent inner world work. Specifically, it's the ability to respond rapidly to all of life. Not some of it, not most of it, but all of it. With grace, mastery, creative genius, and enthusiasm. So that we can get to the creation of excellence faster and with least effort. I'm going to repeat that. Mental toughness is the superpower, the ability that's earned through diligent inner world work, the ability to respond rapidly to all of life with grace, mastery, creative genius, and enthusiasm, so that we can get to the creation of excellence faster and with least effort. That's what we're designed for. So let's get into reps, baby.
Woo, I love it. And just so you know, my next 2 big speeches I'm giving in 3 weeks from now, I'm going to lead with that, and I'm going to quote you in it. And just, this is awesome. This has been so enlightening. And I hope all of our listeners out there will go and rate and review this and share it with their network, because this has genuinely been amazing. And I was going to challenge with prove it. You're the mental toughness coach. And he just did. So thanks, Chris. This has been great.
This has been great. You're an amazing host, brother. So I appreciate you. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for being amazing.
Yeah, well,
thank you for bringing the goodness to the world, man.
Well, likewise, you're welcome. So let's wrap things up with the lightning round questions. I got 3 of them for you. Number 1, I like to ask people, what's the 1 to 3 books that you'd recommend? And of course, we've got your book. I just ordered it. And you mentioned the mustard seed earlier. Is there 1 other or 2 other books you might recommend that have been impactful for you, Chris?
Well, if you're in or around the world of sales, there's definitely our buddy, Bob Berg, and John David Mann, the Go Giver. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in doing more of the work that we just described, here's one by a woman named Byron Katie, who is otherworldly. She has reprogrammed her. The guy I told you about, Steve, my former coach with the flat tire, he coached her. And she has freed herself from fear. She has done this work so diligently for so long that she has eliminated fear as a response in her life, because she just didn't want it there anymore. She's just removed. She's like, I don't like fear, so I don't have that anymore. She was threatened by a dude at gunpoint, and she responded with love. So those Loving What Is the name of her book. That's a great one.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
Yep.
This is great.
Oh, and there's a couple more like The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes.
And The Mastery of Love, also by him.
Be impeccable with your word. I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
Love it.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to music. If you're a music guy, is there a song or a genre or an artist, anything that just fills you up, lights you on fire, just fills your soul, Chris?
There's a song that, like, when I give talks and if they ask for walk-up music, it's by the New Radicals.
The New
I forget
Radicals,
the title of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's their most popular song. It's a super amped up. I'll
You
find
Get
it
What You Give? Is that the name of it?
There it is. That is. Yep, that's it.
I love Spotify, man.
This is good walk-up music, man. It gets the room amped up pretty quick.
Yes.
And then the lights go. You work with the sound crew, right? And then and you tell them when the song hits that point, you just have the lights go crazy all over the room, and then people are like, woo!
That is awesome. Also, borrowing from Mr. Chris Dorris, this song will be my walk-up song in 3 weeks. So thank you.
Attaboy.
This is great, man. This has been so impactful.
If there's an audio-visual crew, get with them beforehand and tell them when it hits that point in the song, just have like spotlights moving and just make the room electric.
Whew. Fantastic. You get what you give. I knew it instantly, and it got me a smile instantly. Awesome. And last question, last word is to you. When you think of the words eternal optimist, what might that mean to you, Chris?
Freedom. When I asked in India, I had a Dasaji, which is a teacher who visits you at night and says, how was your day? What were your learnings? What do you want to talk about? And one night she came over and I said, I got a question for you. I've been waiting for you. And she's like, okay, what is it? And I said, what's your definition of enlightenment? And she looked at me with a smile. She smiled as if I just gave her like a Lamborghini. Like the question was a present for her. She smiled and she looks up at the ceiling. I swear, she sat there smiling, looking up, reflecting on her answer for 45 solid seconds. She looks back at me after all that. And by the way, what she's doing now, I'm like, I almost don't care what she says. This is amazing, just watching her being so present with the question. But I am interested. And she said, having no internal conflict. Eternal optimism. As soon as I was introduced to you by Laban, shout out Laban Ditchburn, appreciate you, brother. I thought, man, that is maybe the best title of a podcast I've ever heard. Eternal optimism, which is when we free ourselves. This is what the work is about: freeing ourselves from the conditioning of our past so that we can experience reality as it is. Reality as opposed to the thick lenses of the conditioning of our past. We take those off, right? So we can experience reality as it is in all of its infinite splendor. And then I can be eternally joy-filled and optimistic.